I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name's Mark, and I'm just your average guy living in a suburban neighborhood with my wife, Jessica. We've been married for 6 years, and things had been relatively smooth until recently. Sure, we had our typical ups and downs, who does? But lately, I started to notice something off with Jessica. It was subtle at first, just little things. She'd come home late from work, claiming she had meetings that ran longer than expected. The way she looked at her phone always seemed a bit too guarded, and she'd snap at me over the smallest issues. I brushed it off as work stress. After all, she was climbing the corporate ladder at her job and I wanted to support her. But the more I tried to ignore these signs, the more they gnawed at me. Then I noticed her car had more miles than expected. I mean, I keep track of everything, you know. I'm meticulous about our finances and maintenance on our vehicles. I took a look at the odometer one day, and it didn't add up. Now, I'm not the kind of guy to go snooping, but my curiosity piqued. So I did what any reasonable husband would do. I checked the GPS history on her car. I didn't know what I was expecting to find, but what I discovered shook me to my core. There were trips to places that just didn't make sense. Jessica would claim she was working late, yet her GPS showed she'd been parked at some motel on the outskirts of town. I felt a pit in my stomach. My mind raced. She couldn't be doing this to me, could she? I had to gather my thoughts before confronting her. The next day I confronted her about the mileage. She laughed it off, saying she might have taken a wrong turn while driving and ended up at the wrong places. It was such a weak excuse that I could tell she was lying, but I kept my composure. I wanted to gather more evidence before making a scene. That evening, I took another look at the GPS records. I saw the same motel listed again, and this time I noticed she had been there for several hours. My heart raced. I felt like I was suffocating. I decided to take a drive to the motel. The gut feeling I had transformed into dread as I parked outside. It looked like any other motel, nothing fancy, just a couple of stories high and a neon light buzzing in the night. I waited, trying to convince myself that I was overreacting, but then I saw her. Jessica stepped out of her car, dressed to the nines, and made her way to a man standing by the entrance. They embraced and my world shattered. I couldn't breathe. I felt so betrayed, so angry. I watched as she kissed this guy, and it felt like someone had plunged a knife into my heart. That's when I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't let this go without a fight. I drove home in a daze, and as soon as she walked through the door, I was ready. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could barely contain my rage. "Jessica, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady yet filled with a fury I couldn't mask. She looked at me, a flicker of fear in her eyes, and I knew she sensed it was about the motel. "What's wrong?" she asked, acting oblivious, but I could see right through her. I took a deep breath. "I know about the motel. I saw you with him." Her face drained of color, and for a second I thought I might have scared her into honesty, but instead she retaliated with her usual flair. "You're being ridiculous, Mark. You don't know what you're talking about. I was just meeting a client." I stood there, feeling like I was in a surreal nightmare. How could she lie so effortlessly? I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, and I knew this was just the beginning of a long confrontation. We exchanged words, accusations flying back and forth, her denial growing more frantic. The emotional impact of her betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt anger, sadness, betrayal, all of it swirling together, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to shake her, make her see how deeply she had hurt me, but I knew I had to keep my cool. I had to think clearly. As the confrontation escalated, Jessica leaned into her excuses, her voice rising to match the intensity of my anger. "You don't understand, Mark. You're overreacting," she insisted, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and defiance. I could hardly believe the audacity of her words. It felt like she was trying to turn the situation back on me, as if I was the villain for wanting the truth. I took a step closer, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. "You were at that motel with another man, Jess. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending it was for work. You know that's a lie." I could feel the heat radiating off me, a cocktail of betrayal and rage threatening to spill over. For a moment she faltered, her expression shifting from defiance to panic. Then she snapped back, "Fine, so maybe I went there, but you don't understand what it's like. I felt so trapped in this marriage." Her words stung worse than I expected. I had always thought we were in this together, that we were building a life side by side. To hear her imply that I was somehow responsible for her actions shattered any lingering hope I had that this had been a misunderstanding. Trapped. Is that why you decided to cheat? I shot back, incredulous. You couldn't have just talked to me about it, but instead you went and slept with someone else. The tension in the room was palpable, thick with unspoken words and raw emotions. I could feel the tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, a mix of anger and sorrow welling up inside me. I had trusted her, and she had violated that trust in the most painful way possible. Jessica, sensing my emotion, suddenly shifted tactics. You've been distant too. You barely pay attention to me anymore, she exclaimed, her voice climbing in pitch. Maybe if you'd been more engaged, I wouldn't have felt the need to seek companionship elsewhere. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was as if she was trying to justify her infidelity, placing the blame squarely on my shoulders. So, your solution was to betray me? I asked, incredulous. You couldn't have thought about how that would affect me, us. The argument continued, spiraling into a whirlwind of accusations and denials. I felt like I was drowning, grasping for any shred of connection we once had. But with every word that came out of her mouth, it was clear that connection was severed, and the love we had built felt like a distant memory. Eventually, the confrontation reached a boiling point. Jessica, realizing she was losing ground, crossed her arms defiantly. You shouldn't have gone through my things, Mark. It's an invasion of privacy. You have no right. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. You're right, but you need to understand that I had to know the truth. I had my suspicions, and I followed them. You left me no choice. For a moment, silence hung between us, thick and heavy. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she struggled to regain control of the narrative. But I was done listening to her lies. I didn't want to argue anymore. I wanted clarity, and I wanted to feel like I had a say in my own future. Jessica, I said, my voice quieter now, I can't pretend this isn't happening. You need to decide what you want. If you truly regret your choices, we could look for help. But if you don't want this marriage, I paused, letting the weight of my words hang in the air, then maybe we need to consider separating. Her eyes widened, and I could see the realization of my words crashing into her like a wave. The fight drained out of her, and for the first time she looked vulnerable. Mark, please, I didn't mean for it to come to this, she pleaded, her voice dropping to a whisper. But I was already feeling the emotional impact of my own words. I had laid everything on the table, and now I was left grappling with the reality of what this could mean for us. My heart was heavy, and the thought of losing her, despite her betrayal, felt like a punch to the gut. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just hurt. I was angry. Angry at her for cheating, angry at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. And as much as it pained me to admit, I was also angry at how easily she had turned my life upside down with her decisions. As we stood there in the silence that followed, I knew the road ahead would be filled with difficult choices and heartbreak. I just didn't know which path I would take yet. The thought of accepting this betrayal and moving forward weighed heavily on me. But I knew one thing for sure. I would not let her lies define my future. I needed to gather my strength and figure out my next steps, whether that meant fighting for our marriage or walking away for good. I was ready for either direction, but it was time to make a choice. As the silence settled over us, I could feel the tension thickening in the air. Jessica sat on the edge of the couch, her face a mixture of frustration and fear. I stood across from her, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The ache in my chest was becoming almost unbearable, and I knew that this moment was going to change everything. Mark, let's just talk about this, she said softly, her tone shifting from defensive to something resembling desperation. I didn't mean to hurt you, it just happened. It just happened, I echoed incredulously. You didn't just happen to sleep with someone else, Jess. You made a choice. You chose to betray me. My voice was more forceful than I intended, but the hurt was spilling over, making it hard to contain. I know, she said, throwing her hands up in exasperation. I made a mistake, but can't we work through this? I love you, Mark. Her words were like daggers. Love, how can you say that after what you've done, what you've thrown away? The pain coursed through me, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to believe her somehow, but the betrayal felt too deep. I just need some time, she continued, her voice trembling. I'll end things with him, I swear, you're my husband. I want to fix this. I shook my head, feeling a sense of betrayal twist tighter around my heart. You say that now, but how can I trust anything you say? How do I know you won't just go back to him the moment things get tough? The tears that welled in her eyes felt like a mixture of regret and frustration. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll go to counseling. I'll change. Just please don't leave me. The thought of leaving her was unbearable, and yet here we were. I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, but it was tainted with the doubt that had taken root in my mind. My heart was torn in two. Jessica, it's not that simple, I said, my voice softened by the overwhelming weight of the situation. This isn't just a bump in the road. You've shattered my trust, and trust is hard to rebuild. She broke down then, tears streaming down her cheeks. I know, I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't want to lose everything we've built together. Everything we've built. I couldn't help but scoff. You've put all of that at risk with your choices. Do you even understand that? I paced the room, my mind racing. I felt like I was spiraling, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. One part of me desperately wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to the love we once had. The other part, the wounded part, screamed for justice and self-preservation. We could try to make it work, she suggested, her voice steadier now, but I could see the anxiety flickering in her eyes. I can prove to you that I'm committed to us. Just give me a chance. I stopped pacing and turned to face her. It's going to take more than just words, Jess. You need to show me you're serious about this. If we're going to try and salvage this marriage, you have to cut all ties with him immediately. No excuses. She nodded vigorously, her expression a mix of determination and desperation. I promise. I'll block him. I'll do whatever you want. Okay, I said cautiously, but this is just the beginning. You need to be completely transparent from now on. I want access to your phone, your messages, everything. If we're going to rebuild trust, there can't be any more secrets. Her face fell slightly at the suggestion, but she quickly masked it with a determined expression. Fine, I'll do it. I'll show you I mean it. The conversation was heavy, and I felt the gravity of my words settling in. It was a small step, but it felt monumental given the circumstances. I realized I was still willing to fight, to see if we could piece together what had been shattered. But even as I agreed to give her another chance, I felt a wave of doubt wash over me. How could I trust her again? The thought of her with another man haunted me, replaying in my mind like a cruel film. That night as I lay in bed, I kept my distance. I could feel her next to me, but my heart felt miles away. I wanted to reach out to hold her, but the betrayal loomed heavy over us. I closed my eyes, trying to quiet the storm inside me. How would I move forward from here? The thought of counseling flashed in my mind. Perhaps we could find a way back to each other, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. I had a long road ahead of me, one filled with the potential for healing, but also fraught with the risk of further heartbreak. I needed to protect myself as much as I could, and I was ready to confront whatever emotions came next. Little did I know, this was just the calm before the storm. The aftermath of our confrontation was going to push us to our limits and reveal more truths than I could ever have anticipated. The next few days felt like an emotional roller coaster. Jessica and I had agreed to try and work through the mess she had created, but it was clear that the tension between us was palpable. The silence in our home was deafening, and every conversation felt like a minefield. I could hardly look at her without feeling that familiar pang of betrayal, the images of her with another man replaying in my mind like a haunting reminder of our shattered trust. She kept her word about blocking him, turning her phone screen away from me and being more open about her whereabouts. But every time she picked up her phone, I felt a surge of anxiety. I was still wrestling with the reality that I couldn't fully trust her. Trust didn't just return because she promised. It was something that had to be earned back over time, and I was struggling with how to navigate that path. We decided to go to counseling, which I thought would be a step in the right direction. Our first appointment was awkward, to say the least. The therapist, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Patel, was kind but straightforward. "Let's talk about what brought you here," she began, looking from me to Jessica. Jessica spoke first, her voice shaky. I made a mistake. I cheated on my husband and I want to fix it. The admission hung in the air, heavy and charged. I braced myself for the flood of emotions that would follow. Dr. Patel nodded, encouraging her to go on. And you, Mark, how does this make you feel? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. It feels like my entire world has been turned upside down, I said, my voice steady. I don't know if I can trust her again. I want to, but every time I think about what happened, it just hurts. The session went on, and I felt a small part of me begin to soften as we talked through our feelings. Jessica expressed her regrets, her longing to rebuild what we had lost. Yet even as she spoke, there was a flicker of doubt in my mind. Would this really work? As we left the therapist's office, I caught Jessica's hand, wanting to show some support. But her touch felt foreign, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our connection had been irrevocably altered. Days turned into weeks, and while we attended our weekly counseling sessions, I felt like we were treading water. Jessica seemed genuinely remorseful, putting in the effort to reconnect, but I was still hesitant. I couldn't help but watch her carefully, waiting for any sign that she might slip back into her old habits. One evening, I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table, her phone in hand. My heart raced as I asked, "What are you doing?" She looked up, startled. "Just checking a few messages," she said, her voice a bit too casual. "Can I see?" I asked, a knot tightening in my stomach. She hesitated, and I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. It's just work stuff," she replied, but something about her tone struck me as off. I felt anger bubbling inside me. "If you're serious about rebuilding trust, you need to be transparent with me. We talked about this." She sighed, rolling her eyes. "Mark, you're being paranoid. Can't we just enjoy a normal evening?" "Normal? This isn't normal." I snapped back, feeling my frustration boiling over. "You've made this 1,000 times more complicated than it needs to be." Her eyes hardened, and I could see she was hurt by my words. "I'm trying, okay, but you're making it impossible." I stormed out of the room, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. We had just started to scratch the surface of rebuilding our relationship, and yet here we were again, stuck in a cycle of blame and defensiveness. That night, I lay in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in my head. I realized how fragile everything felt. The anger I had been holding onto was beginning to morph into a feeling of hopelessness. The next day, I decided to confront the situation head-on. I asked her to meet me at a coffee shop, a neutral ground where we could talk without the weight of home hanging over us. As I waited for her, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I wanted to address the elephant in the room, the trust issues that were still looming over us. When Jessica arrived, she looked nervous, her fingers fiddling with the strap of her bag. "Hey," she said softly as she sat down. "Hey." I replied, trying to keep my tone even. "I wanted to talk about what happened last night. I can't keep going in circles like this." "I know," she said, looking down at her coffee. "I'm sorry, I'm trying to be better, but it's hard for me too." "Then we need to set some ground rules," I said firmly. "I need to know that I can trust you completely, and that means you need to be open about everything. No hiding things on your phone, no more secrets." She nodded, her expression earnest. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to show you I'm committed." But as she spoke, I felt a flicker of doubt. Would this actually work? I wanted to believe her, but I also knew that words were meaningless without action. "I know it's a long road ahead," I continued, my voice softer now, "but I can't keep feeling this way. I need to feel like we're genuinely working together." "I promise," she said, her eyes glistening with sincerity. "I won't let you down again." In that moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that maybe we could still find our way back to each other. But part of me was still guarded, still holding on to the pain of what had happened. I didn't want to be the one to hold her accountable, but I could feel it was necessary for my own peace of mind. As we talked, I sensed a shift in our dynamic. We were still navigating this tumultuous sea, but perhaps we could find a way to weather the storm together. There was a long journey ahead, filled with challenges and doubts. But for now, I was willing to try. Little did I know that the consequences of our decisions would soon come crashing down, forcing us to confront even deeper truths about ourselves and our relationship. The days turned into weeks, and while Jessica and I put on a brave face in our efforts to mend our broken relationship, I could feel the tension simmering just beneath the surface. The counseling sessions had helped us establish some ground rules, and for a while, I thought we were making progress. Jessica was more open, more attentive, and I could see the remorse in her eyes. But the longer we continued down this path, the more I felt a nagging doubt creep back in, a gnawing suspicion that perhaps we were simply avoiding the inevitable. Then came the day I received an unexpected phone call. I was in the middle of work when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Is this Mark?" The voice on the other end sounded tense, almost breathless. "Yes, who is this?" I asked, suddenly on high alert. "It's Alex," he said, and in that moment my heart dropped. I recognized the name instantly as the man Jessica had been seeing. "I need to talk to you." I felt a rush of adrenaline course through me. "Talk to me? About what?" "I know this is awkward, but I think you should know some things about Jessica," he said. My stomach churned. I didn't mean for things to go this far, but— "Cut the crap, Alex," I interrupted, my voice low and steady. "What do you want?" "I think she's still been in contact with me." His words hung in the air like a dark cloud. "I saw her last week. She said things were over, but—" My heart raced. "You saw her after she promised to cut ties." "I know how this sounds, man," he continued, his tone earnest. "I didn't want to believe it, but I think you need to confront her again. I'm not trying to cause trouble, but I thought you should hear it from me." I hung up, my mind swirling. Was this true? Had she gone back to him? It felt like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. I couldn't believe I was standing at this crossroads again, facing the same emotional turmoil that had been tearing me apart. I took a few deep breaths to steady myself before making my way home. My mind raced with a million thoughts, but one stood out above the rest. I needed to confront Jessica. When I walked through the door, Jessica was in the living room scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smiled at me, but the warmth I once felt from that smile seemed lost in the moment. "Hey, how was your day?" "Not great," I said, my tone colder than intended. "We need to talk." Her smile faltered, and I could see the apprehension in her eyes. "What's wrong?" "I just got a call from Alex," I said, watching her face turn white. "He claims he saw you last week." The color drained from her face, and for a moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "What? No, that can't be true." "Is it true, Jessica?" I pressed, my voice rising. "Did you see him, after everything we've been through?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see the panic setting in. It was as if she was weighing her options, trying to decide how to respond. "Mark, please, I swear I thought it was over. I haven't seen him. You have to believe me." "Believe you after everything?" I shot back, frustration boiling over. "You promised me you'd be honest. This is the second time I'm hearing about you seeing him again. How can I trust anything you say?" "I didn't mean to get caught up in this mess. I was trying to figure things out," exclaimed, her voice trembling. "Figure things out by seeing him?" I scoffed, my heart racing. "That's not how this works, Jessica. You had a chance to be honest with me and you threw it all away. You're still lying." "I'm not lying," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can prove it. I'll show you everything." "Show me what? More lies?" I retorted, feeling the anger surge through me. "I can't keep doing this. I thought we were working on things, but now it feels like you haven't changed at all." She crumpled to the floor, sobbing quietly. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was overshadowed by my anger and hurt. "Jessica, if you want to keep this marriage alive, you need to stop lying. You have to show me you're committed to making this work. Otherwise, I don't know how we can move forward." "I will, I promise," she gasped between sobs. "I don't want to lose you. Please, just give me one more chance." I felt a part of me aching to comfort her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being manipulated. Again, I don't even know if I can trust those words anymore. Every time I let my guard down, you break it all over again. "Just let me prove it," she begged, looking desperate. "I'll call him right now. I'll tell him to leave me alone for good. Just please give me that chance." The raw emotion in her voice, the desperation in her eyes, made me hesitate. Part of me wanted to reach out to comfort her, but I couldn't ignore the reality of what had happened. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "You need to understand, this is not just about you anymore. You've hurt me deeply, and it's going to take more than just words to fix this. I need time to think about what I want." As her sobs echoed in the empty room, I felt the weight of my decision bearing down on me. I turned away, needing space to breathe. I needed to think clearly, to process everything that had just happened. I walked outside, the cool air hitting my face, grounding me in reality. I felt torn, battling between wanting to believe in her and recognizing the signs of deception. I needed to think of my own emotional well-being. As I stood on the porch, staring out into the darkening sky, I realized that the path ahead was going to be the hardest part yet. The aftermath of this confrontation would lay the groundwork for my next steps, and I knew I had to make a decision that would shape my future. What would I choose? Love or self-preservation? Trust or self-doubt? I felt trapped in a storm of emotions, and I had to find a way to emerge from it with clarity. The resolution was looming, but I never expected the consequences to unfold in ways I could never have imagined. The following few days were excruciating. Jessica and I established an uneasy truce after the confrontation that left both of us raw. She was more apologetic than ever, and I could see her desperation to salvage what was left of our relationship. However, every time I looked at her, I felt that familiar pang of betrayal, and it only deepened my resolve to protect my heart. We continued our counseling sessions, but I was still grappling with the doubt that had taken root. In my mind, Dr. Patel suggested we set a timeline for our healing process, which felt both comforting and daunting. "You need to have specific goals to work toward," she said, looking between us. "Trust takes time to rebuild. It's not just about saying the right things, it's about consistent actions over time." Jessica nodded earnestly, her eyes full of emotion. "I'll do anything, I promise," she said, her voice trembling. "I want to make this right." But I was still uncertain. I needed to see more than just promises. I needed to see commitment. After our session, I decided to take a more proactive approach. I told Jessica that I wanted to see her phone records, her text messages, and any communication she had with Alex. "If we're going to make this work, I need full transparency," I said. She agreed, but I could see the tension in her expression. "I understand," she replied, her voice wavering. "But just know that I'm not proud of my mistakes. I don't want to feel like I'm under surveillance. I want us to rebuild trust, not create more distance." I nodded, recognizing the truth in her words, but at that moment it felt impossible to strike the balance between vigilance and trust. I told her I would give her space, but I would also expect her to keep her word. As the weeks passed, I started to notice a change in Jessica. She seemed more committed, more present. She made an effort to involve me in her life, introducing me to her work friends and including me in her plans. Part of me wanted to believe that she had turned a corner, but the past loomed heavy over us. Then came a Friday evening when everything changed. I had planned a surprise date night, hoping to rekindle some of the romance that had been lost. I set up a candle-lit dinner on our patio, and as I arranged the flowers, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could truly turn this around. When Jessica arrived home, her eyes lit up, and for a moment the weight of our troubles lifted. We enjoyed dinner, and the atmosphere felt almost normal. We talked and laughed, a part of me beginning to relax, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a hint of the love we once shared, but that feeling didn't last. Later that night, as we were cleaning up, Jessica stepped outside to take a phone call. I was tidying the kitchen when I noticed her voice rising, filled with urgency and emotion. My heart raced as I strained to overhear. "Alex, I told you it's over," she yelled. "You can't just call me like this. I can't do this anymore." My stomach sank. I gripped the edge of the counter, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to confront her, but I felt paralyzed, caught in a web of fear and betrayal. After a few minutes, Jessica came back inside, her face flushed. "Sorry, it was just a work call. Nothing important," she said, but I could see the tremor in her hands. "Work call," I repeated, my voice calm but laced with suspicion. "You were yelling." "It's just a misunderstanding," she insisted. "I swear it's nothing to worry about." But I was done with her evasions. "Jessica, we need to be honest with each other. You promised," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I heard you talking to Alex, you keep doing this." Her eyes widened and I could see the panic rising. "I didn't mean for you to overhear. I was at work," I interrupted, feeling the anger bubbling up inside me. Or is there still something going on between you two? She hesitated, her expression shifting from fear to frustration. Mark, I'm trying so hard to make this work. I didn't want you to find out like this. The confrontation spiraled into chaos, words flying like daggers. You're still in contact with him. You lied to my face, Jessica. I'm not lying, I promise. I thought I could handle it without making it a big deal. She cried. Thought you could handle it. What about me? I felt the weight of the betrayal press down on me, suffocating. I'm the one who's been left to pick up the pieces. I didn't mean to hurt you, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted this. The fight drained me and I realized it was futile. I stepped back, my heart racing, and took a moment to breathe. I can't keep doing this. I thought we were making progress, but you're still just avoiding the truth. As I looked at her, I felt the final threads of our relationship unraveling. The love we once had felt so distant, almost like a dream. I can't keep waiting for you to decide what you want. I need to think about myself for a change. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica looked broken, and in that moment I realized the depth of my own pain. I had wanted so desperately to believe in our love, but the truth was that I felt trapped in a cycle of betrayal and hurt. That night, I made a decision. I told Jessica that I needed space to figure out what I wanted. I couldn't continue pretending that everything was okay. I needed to explore whether I could truly forgive her or if it was time to let go. As I packed a few bags, I felt a mixture of sadness and liberation. I loved her, but I couldn't continue living like this, caught in a web of half-truths and broken promises. In the days that followed, I reflected on everything that had happened. I realized that I had learned a lot about myself through this experience. I had been strong enough to confront my pain, to stand up for what I deserved. Ultimately, I chose my own peace over a toxic relationship. I moved out and started the process of healing. I still cared for Jessica, but I knew that I had to prioritize my own emotional well-being. As I settled into my new space, I found solace in the quiet. I began to rediscover who I was outside of our marriage and what I truly wanted in life. It was a long journey ahead, but I was ready to embrace it. I had learned that sometimes letting go is the first step to finding yourself again. And though the road was uncertain, it was a path I was willing to navigate, one step at a time.